Hi everyone, it's Jan. So I was thinking about creativity. Just about to go for a run, do some sport, but sometimes ideas just jump into your head. So I thought I'd share them. And I think what I've been really interested in is, where does creativity come from, basically, right? How do you go from nothing to something? Because that doesn't make any sense, right? You always need something to make something in some sense. So I think the way I've come to think about this really is this idea of the void. And for me, the universe that we live in is an infinite universe. I imagine it as imagine clay. Like you live in the clay, right? So in if you hold some clay in your hand, there's infinite potential in that clay. It could be a vase, a pot, a bowl, anything. And so there's infinite potential in that clay, and it really is in the it requires an intelligence to shape that clay into a certain form to become something. So essentially, what a potter does is they collapse infinite potential of the clay into a certain specific form, like a vase. And so for me, the very fabric of the universe that we live in is that clay, basically. All this world around me, all of this, is just an infinite universe of potentiality. And that's the void. The void is not away from us. The void is always present, but it's present in being infinite. So what that means is by being infinite, it has no presence. It has only potential. In the same way that that clay doesn't have a vase in it yet, it has the potential to become a vase. And so really what an intelligence does is taking and engaging with infinity and shaping it into something specific, or at least trying to shape something specific, right? Sometimes you make a vase and it doesn't work out. I made a lot of bad vases in my life, and in my previous pottery career. That's actually true. So let's get back on point. So the point is here that when you're trying to shape something, you are accessing this void. You have to go as your being into this void and open yourself up to it. The potter has to look at the clay and say, what will I shape out of this? And actually, the really hard thing about creativity is infinity, that you can do anything you want. This is well known in the artistic community of the fear of the blank canvas. When you stare at the empty piece of paper or the empty painting canvas, what are you going to create? Right? It's not that you have nothing, it's that you could create anything, and that's what's so paralyzing. So I think that's really important, because how do you navigate into this infinity? When this void is what I call it. So when you look into the void also looks into you, right? You are in conversation with the universe, and so the universe essentially kind of sounds a bit crazy, but the universe essentially communicates with you, right? It's expressing itself, and so what that means is a dialectic there. You with the universe around you, or the potter with the clay. The potter, imagine, he or she picks it up in their hands. They have ideas in their head about, what the kind of vase they want to make, what colors it should be, what function it should serve. Is it a vase of flowers? Is it a vase for pouring water? And so through this dialogue with the universe, you create. You start the creative journey. And so when you create, you never start from nothing. You're always starting from a place of being in the dialogue with the universe. And that's what's so exciting and so thrilling. But then, the dark side of creativity is, when is it enough? You're always trying to grasp out more into this infinity. And what I've found is that you can sometimes get really stuck in trying to produce more, trying to create more, tap into more void, more infinity. And the point is, we are finite beings in an infinite universe, so there's always going to be more. And the real danger for the creative or being creative, let's say more specifically, is that you exhaust yourself in the search for perfection, which is never going to be achieved, because the universe is always infinite. So at some point, the creator must step back away from their creation and say, this is good enough, this is great. And if they don't do it, then something will force them to do it, either their own destruction or, the lack of resources or something else. So that's, one of the gifts of creativity, and also the curse is you have this gift of being creative is to dance with the universe, to create something. And really, for me, creativity is more about being a vessel for creating what is out there. It's more, the universe reveals to you what it is that can be created, and you shape that rather than you creating everything on your own. It's through that you existing in dialogue with the universe. But if you don't know when to say stop, if you don't know when to say this is enough, then you can fall into the dark side where you just pursue more and more and more, and it's endless and exhausting, and you become consumed by the very thing you're trying to create. So where does this leave us on a Friday afternoon? It leaves us with a thought that creativity is a beautiful, wonderful, divine act. I think it's something that we all are blessed to be able to enjoy and manifest in our own ways. But it's also something that we need to be cautious of, that we don't become seduced by our own creative powers, because that can also lead us into becoming lost and destructive. So that's really the truth of two, isn't it? The joy of creating something, but making sure that we don't go too far that we end up destroying ourselves. Have a great weekend, and leave your thoughts in the comments.